Blog Talk Radio.
This is an Awakening Zone presentation, Human Empowerment Radio and Media for the 21st Century and Beyond.
Welcome to InnerSpeak Soul Adventures, your ultimate consciousness program. Every week we'll open the portal to the field of pure potential so that we can walk together, hand in hand, into the universe of conscious creation. I am Jean Adrian. I'm your host and tour guide on this adventure, and it's my mission to bring you the information from many sources to assist you to make your choices and raise your vibration. Together, we're creating the new reality. This is my first show on this exciting new network, and I am thrilled that you've chosen to join me here. My commitment to you is to bring forward each week information that will challenge you to grow and provide you with the tools to use as you do so. If you followed me here from Voice America, where this show has aired for the last 4 years, thank you. And if you're just finding my show for the first time tonight, welcome. And I'll take a minute to introduce myself. I'm the developer of InnerSpeak, which is a tool to assist you in releasing old stored programs from your past, so that you can create the life you deserve on a clean slate. And my website, jeanadrian.com, is your resource for personal and professional transformation. So are you ready to shift your reality and make positive and healthy changes for now and going forward in your life? Are you ready to break free from the insanity of repeating behaviors that sabotage your success? I have tools to assist you in that process. And one of those tools is the online version of my InnerSpeak cards. And you can have a subscription to those cards for free. Just go on my website, sign up for my newsletter, and I'll send you the link. The cards are in 6 languages, so you can clear your blocks in your native tongue. And another free tool on my website is InnerSpeak Now TV. The latest segment is now live on my homepage. It's a 5-minute video, and I'm introducing the new DNA glyphs I've channeled over the last several months. And this video includes 2 of those glyphs for you to meditate on. They have the ability to assist you in activating 2 latent strands of DNA and their associated attributes of Christ consciousness. So use them and enjoy. This is very timely information because DNA is actually what we're going to be talking about tonight. And if you're in the Atlanta area, you can join me on February 12th, where I'll be teaching Reframe Your World with Power Tools at the Harmony Learning Center. And so now let's just get right down to what we've all been waiting for. I want to introduce you to my guest this evening. He's the author of many books. He's probably the first person to write about indigo children many years ago, but he's probably more well-known because he's been the voice of Kryon for over 21 years. It is my pleasure to welcome Lee Carroll. Thank you, Lee, for taking time to be here tonight.
Thank you, Jean. This is kind of a milestone, isn't it?
It really is.
It's the first of your programs on Awakening Zone, which is something we're going to remember for a long time, because I just feel I get chills every time I think about the whole idea of what Awakening Zone is doing, the family that's coming together, the kinds of information and this new energy that is available now, and then the irony and the synchronicities of when we are kind of meeting up for the first time, which is another milestone, is that you and I meeting on this way on the telephone.
Right.
Is that how commensurate our work is? In other words, that's how synchronicity works together, and we're teaching the same stuff with sometimes different words, and I love that. I just truly do.
Yeah.
So thank you for having me on.
Oh, it's my pleasure. You know, I've been wanting to interview you for 4 years now, and so I think it's completely appropriate that I'm getting to do it on my first show on the Awakening Zone.
Oh,
you know, and I just finished your book, The 12 Layers of DNA, and wow, I've got to say, it's blown me away. It's right on target with all this information that I've been receiving over the last 3 months, and you've actually helped me to understand at a deeper level what all this stuff means, you know, that I brought in, because I didn't know. I mind well. I take good notes.
Yeah, it's really interesting, and I tell this to almost everybody, and it's nice to hear you to verbalize that. I want to thank you on the air here for that. I tell a lot of people, especially those that have been working with this kind of thing, that as you read, especially my work, what you should get is a feeling of, wow, this isn't all that new. I know that. Yeah, that's right. And so it becomes a series of remembering and agreeing of that it's a validated energy that you've kind of, at some level, already knew. And in your case, you're teaching it. So it's not about, well, this is new and I better stop down and and rethink everything. Instead it's an enhancement and a validation of almost everything that you've done.
Well, it's even more than that. I got to tell you that I've been doing InnerSpeak now for close on to 15 years, and I never understood how it worked. I knew it worked. I know how many people it helped, but I didn't really completely get it until I read Layer 8, and and then all of a sudden it's like, oh wow, that's how it works, So it's like, ooh. So it's been a bigger book for me than you can possibly imagine. But, there may be some people listening tonight, Lee, that aren't familiar with Kryon. So can we start off by just making sure that everybody's on the same page? Who exactly is this energy that you channel, Kryon?
Well, I'll just be very candid. Every time somebody asks that, even if it's on a metaphysical, spiritual show, I wince a little. And the reason is because I'm an engineer. That was my passion. It always was. It still really is. 22 years ago is when all of this actually started. Now that the clock is ticking into 2011, I can say 22. And I know how it felt back then when somebody said they were a channeler. And I know from a standpoint of coming from truly an unbeliever's, I want to say purview, the way people think in 3D, it's a stretch, and I'm aware of that very much. And even though many of your listeners, if not all of them, would like probably me to just to keep going here and not explain it to doubters, I have to. I have to, because it is part of what's going on right now. There's just so many people kind of coming online and looking at channeling, and they only know what they've heard. I have a beautiful entity in my life. I don't even want to call it an entity. It's a family member. I don't think you call your sister an entity unless she really bugs you. And it's my sister brother who literally sits upon my heart. It's an angelic feeling, an overwhelming love energy that comes through me and spills onto the page, has for all these years, and it's a very wise, loving aid. Kryon is the name, which I know, it sounds a lot like spray paint, so just forget that part. And it's a sound in the air. The Kryon name is like sounds in the air, and that's how it was developed. That's why Kryon wants it said a certain way. The spelling, in numerological terms, we realize equals an 11. There's a lot of interesting energies around it. And the attribute, I would say, of this entity is that there is never criticism. It's never harsh. It is always beautiful. It is always filled with help and potentials and congratulations. And in the process, through the years, of course, there's been a lot of prophecies that have come about. Some of them are coming about even as we speak, which are not really fortune-telling at all. It's merely a validation of potentials that have been here since we started this new energy. A lot of us are doing work that we probably could not have done 20 years ago, only because not only was the information not there, but we didn't really have the tools of understanding. And so a lot of what is being taught now, probably including InnerSpeak, is very, I would say, advanced for our time. And I don't want you to let me get out of here today of this room of broadcast before I tell you some things that have happened in addition to my book that will enhance your knowledge even and the reader's knowledge of what InnerSpeak is doing.
Cool. Well, I'll make a note and we'll get there for
Good.
Sure. Absolutely, yeah.
Yes.
Well, so how did it all work out such that you came to be his partner?
This this I have told this many times, and I've also even told it on Awakening Zone, because there's the other hosts who are coming online, and one of them, of course, Joe Rambola, whose voice you heard earlier, has asked me this question. So I'm going to make a synopsis, because I know there's new listeners happening. I was dragged into this. I was not willing, but I went to a channeler by request of my wife at the time, Jan Tober, who co-wrote the Indigo Children book with me. She's still my spiritual partner and my friend. And she said, go to this guy, and I said, I don't want to go to this guy. And she said, oh, please, And so I did, and I sat in front of him, and he was a channeler. Well, this really turned me off. This is why I'm sensitive about this, because I sat in front of the guy, and he didn't make sense, and he closed his eyes, and it was a bunch of gobbledygook, and we had a tape, the cassette was rolling, and so I figured, well, this is really for Jan, and I didn't pay any attention, but I really wanted to leave and stop him and tell him, because he was a man, I thought, hey, I can understand a woman doing woo-woo stuff, but come on, guy, what are you doing? I thought maybe he went insane. All of these things that people think about me now. It's like, oh, Mr. Carroll, how does it feel to be lunatic fringe? And I go, wait a minute. I'm getting it back now. And so we left that session, and literally I closed the door on the event, went about my life, and 3 years later, she asked me to do it again with a psychic in town, a younger man, much younger. The first man was in his 60s. Second guy was 20, 23, I think. And he was a psychic. And I went in to see him for the same reasons, and I did a 20-minute reading. It turned out to be about 7 minutes, because he said, look, I know you don't want to be here. And I looked at him, and I said, wow, you really are psychic. And he said, I only have one message for you, and it's like all around you. He says, there's a magnetic master named Kryon who wants to get a hold of you. And I looked at him, and I thought in my brain, well, he's as crazy as the other guy. So this is the setup. It's very simple. 3 years apart, two guys gave me a message. Well, I didn't think anything of it, but I thought I heard that funny name before, the spray paint name. And I thought, I wonder if the first guy said it, because I didn't remember anything. So I went back and found Jan's tape of the first guy, and there it was. In fact, it was the same phrase. There's a magnetic master named Kryon trying to get a hold of you. And I sat down, and I had a puzzle. Now, I'm a spiritual guy. I went to church when I was little and all these things. I believe in God. So here we are with this puzzle before me that I could not solve in 3D. How do you explain two guys 3 years apart with the same phrase? There's no proof, and there's only one way to do it. Now, this is what you're going to like this, because this is what everybody teaches. You can't do it. You can't work it out on paper, guys. So I sat down and literally gave intent with my entire soul to get this out of the way. I wanted to say, if you're real, show it to me. It's the only way you could prove or disprove. Now, people would say, okay, you're the engineer. Why did you care? And this is harder to explain. I cared because number one, it was a puzzle, and I like to solve puzzles. And number two, it felt like it sat on me in a way that I had to resolve it, if you know what I mean. So I did, and the resolution just blew me away, because as I sat there and I opened that door, I received an incredible amount of love wash that was so not me that I slammed the door fast and didn't do it for a month or two. I didn't even tell Jan. And slowly I opened it, and then in came not messages, but simply love. I just opened that door to feel good. And now I realize what I'm doing after 22 years and, what that door represents. But it was only later that the messages started coming. It took me 4 more years to have the first book, to brave the doubt in me, to tell anybody what I was doing. And, then from then on, there's a long story about what that was like. However, that is how the engineer becomes the woo-woo guy, and it's a process of intent over 4 years, and then finally, I'll just to get out of this, because I answer questions in a long way, to say that that people are going to say, well, I'm not sure I want to have that happen to me, especially if somebody's listening here and really doesn't. And the answer is, so what I found out was that Spirit left me alone. I'm the one who sat in the chair and asked. I'm the one who said, let's go to the next level. I am the one who said, if you're there, show me. And at no time was anything pushed on me. No energy went into my body that I didn't ask for. It was such a, the process was so honoring of my disbelief, if you understand what I mean.
Oh,
I went
yeah.
at my
I've
own.
been there. I know.
Yeah. I went at my own pace. And so I tell people, if you come to a meeting where I channel, there's not going to be an energy flow into you. It's not an occult experience. My head doesn't spin around. And most people know that. But I just have to tell those who might be listening perhaps for the first time. This is a very honored situation in my life, and it's an easy thing to listen to. And I so love it that you called it a love wash, because that's exactly what I felt. I've never had that term. You've given me something new that I can say, because when I sat down in front of my computer and typed for 3 months and received that inner speak information, that's what it was. I sat there, the tears flowed down my face, and I didn't stop except to go to the bathroom, to eat, or to sleep. And when it was all there, I was like, oh, now what am I going to do? Where am I going to find that? But of course, every time they come back, I get that love wash, and it's so
just
good to hear
amazing.
You say that. Gene, it is amazing.
So man, anybody that's listening, if you all you have to do is ask, and they will they'll come into you too, and you can feel that love wash, and it's unlike anything you've ever felt before.
It is. It's not an intellectual pursuit, and I tell people there's a number of things. First, when they meet me in person and they see what I do and they listen to my lectures and all, they realize that I'm a very happy guy. I'm a joker. I tell jokes, and I'm a little bit of a goofball, and they like that too. And I have had criticism saying, well, how can you be a spiritual man, and walk around like that? And I said, because my God it gives me joy, and it's hard for me to settle down and be still when that happens. And especially the intellectuals, they say, well, if you have this, this, and this, and this, and it's a very serious business you're doing, and religion is this way. And I say, I don't have religion. I've got a personal spiritual quest that I am on, and you can listen in if you want.
Oh, yeah. So you've been talking to this magnetic master now for 21 years.
Doesn't that sound like you want to stick him on the refrigerator? I mean, come on. It's just like, Yeah,
well,
right.
I guess I've listened to enough of your channels over the years that, I know what he sounds like. And it was so funny to me because, I came over and saw you at when you were up at Delphi. I just popped in because I couldn't get a ticket. And when I was driving away from there, going back to my cabin, actually I wasn't, Randy was driving and I was riding, and all I heard in my head, this is Kryon of Magnetic Service, and he went off and started telling me all this great stuff. And, I'd never heard him inside my head before. It was wild.
That points up the other thing, Gene, is that this breaks a paradigm that everybody and anybody listening, even in the New Age, this breaks a human paradigm that says that you've got a facility, what do you want to call it? You've got an entity and it's yours, and nobody else is supposed to have it. And that's just absurd, any more than you can proprietarize God or spirit in any way. Anybody can hear from Kryon. Anybody can channel Kryon. This is not my angel. I'm just the first guy to do it. And so what has happened is that, just like you said, is that this particular energy influences so many people who want to hear it. There's also been professionals who have taken it on, and there's many Kryon channels all over the world. I support a lot of them. In fact, I have even had Kryon conferences where we have invited international Kryons from all over the planet to sit on stage with me and channel with me. And we've even done that. So, and people will roll their eyes at that and say, well, how does he do that? Because, we're in this mindset of singularity, and everybody has their own work, and everybody competes with each other, and it's just not that way.
Well, we're moving out of that competitive stuff. I so believe we're moving into an era of collaboration, and you already started it by just doing what you said, which is really great. So sometime over the last 21 years, Kryon started talking to you about DNA. I guess you began to get little foretastes of this book, right?
Very, very slowly, I am understanding that there has been a ramp-up, in my opinion, and now I'm talking personally, to this particular book, this book 12, which represents a 3 in numerological terms, written in released in 2010, which is also a 3. There's some numbers of 3s. 3 is a catalytic number. It means it changes things around it. But if you really take a look at a bigger picture, my trips to Israel started with me meeting Alon, who moved to the United States and helped with all of the illustrations and all of the Hebrewizing of some of these names, which is also very important. And then finally, my meeting, a synchronistic meeting with a DNA researcher, Dr. Todd Ovakaitis, 10 years ago, who has become my best friend. And all of these things together have not only given me a scientific knowledge of DNA to the extent that I could have it without being a doctor, it's helped me then integrate it into, very slowly, over the last 4 years, into the spiritual information which has come in. So slow, I didn't know why so slow, and now I understand it. It's so that I would be, what do you want to say, I would sit with it so much that by the time I got to the book, I would be able to explain it well. And so you're right, absolutely right. Unlike any of the other books that I've written 15, this one is the most special. Of course, if you ask any author, the last one's always the best. This one is the best. Yes.
Well, I've read most of your books, and I got to say, yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm still digesting it. So, I'm only on my first read-through. I got to go back and read it 2 more times before I'll even be able to say I'm really, kind of sort of there with it. But, wow. So let's just in case anybody out there has questions or comments, we would love to hear from you. The call-in number is 714-364-4335, and there are a lot of you in the chat room. If you've got questions for Lee or me, you can put them in there, and I will do my best to moderate while Lee and I are talking. I'd have difficulty walking and chewing gum at the same time, so I will, warn you ahead of time. If I'm slow on the uptake, it's just because, I'm slow on the uptake, whatever. But Lee's website is Kryon, Kryon.com. So, you can find a lot more information out there. We'll talk about that more. But let's talk about this DNA stuff. What do you think?
And I like to start at the beginning to give somebody just kind of a snapshot of what this is about. And so they don't think it is something that just popped out of the blue, because it really does interface very well with mainstream science, what has been discovered, and answers some questions. Although they're being answered spiritually, we have, and this is what I want to talk to you about, a real crossover going on between a couple of people who have stepped bravely out of the medical world into where we are. I hesitate to call it the New Age world, just to call it the esoteric world.
It's a woo-woo world. I mean, you can just
there we are. Fruit Loops and wind chimes world works for me too. And you have suddenly, if you take a look at, there's a bunch of ahas going on. So let me tell you, if we have this moment here, to ramp up to this, a little bit of what science knows about DNA, what they've discovered. And I went through this also with Joe, but these are different listeners. This is your show, and I will do this again. And then I want to move to just peripherally what it means to us, and then I want to bring in a doctor, and not the one that you think, to tell you what he has discovered. And then you start to look at it and go, wow, maybe there's something here. First of all, the DNA molecule has ever since Watson and Crick discovered what it was, it's super, super small. It has to be seen on an electron microscope. And so you have this double helix, which is extremely small. And for the last decades or so, we have decided to analyze it because we wanted to find out how it makes the the genes of the body. It's about 36,000 of them. And that was the Human Genome Project, and many of you have heard of that. This project was set out to identify all the chemistry in the double helix. As small as that molecule is, and this will blow you away, they discovered there are 3 billion parts to it. Can you imagine how small that is? So now we are looking at quantum particles. They really do qualify as particles in a quantum state, and they behave, some of them, like quantum particles do in a quantum state, and that's why you have now quantum biologists who are studying DNA. So that's the first clue and hint that maybe in our bodies we have something that behaves outside of physics into a quantum state. In quantumness, you can have things being in two places at the same time. You can have them teleporting. You can have them all manner of things. I'm talking about physics now, not woo-woo. So here we are with the Human Genome Project identifying all those chemicals, and what they found out just blew them away, was that only 3.5% of those 3 billion chemicals did anything at all that they could figure out. And those were the protein-encoded ones, and they made the 36,000 genes of the body. So they were very, very interested in those coded parts. The rest, they couldn't figure out. It looked like randomness. It looked like chaos. There was no symmetry to them, nothing. And so they just, I mean, what are they going to do with it? They put it through computers. They tried to break it as though they would break codes. Nothing made any sense, and it never got any better. So they kind of put it on the shelf and called it junk DNA. They knew better. These guys are smart men and women. They know it does something, but they just don't know what. To this day, they don't know what. It still appears to be random. So they concentrate on the 3.5% that they want to figure out for genealogy purposes and trying to cure people. So there we sit with that information. So here comes Kryon with the premise that says the 90% that you cannot identify in linearity is quantum, and it is pure 100% information. It is the information, then, 90% of us is information that talks to the stem cells in our body, talks to our consciousness, and a lot of it is spiritual. And that spiritual part then identified into 12 parts or layers, as Kryon calls it, for study, number is phenomenal. But the one that you like, that you have mentioned, and the one that has been channeled probably the most because it's the most appropriate at the moment, is Kryon calls layer 8. Now, 8 in numerological terms is manifestation. 8 is the Akashic record of each human being. That is your lineage, what you've done, where you've been, all the things you have learned. It comes in with you, according to Kryon. And this is where it gets good. It got good before that, but I mean, here's where it gets real good. And this is what I want to mention to you, is that it's Dr. Bruce Lipton, who I want to talk about, who was at our last year's conference in Sedona, who blew me away when he was a teacher, a professor in medical school. So this is no slouch guy. This is not a peripheral guy at all. In fact, he to this day teaches immunology in New Zealand. And he was in, as he tells it, one of the prestigious medical schools where they had him do a set of experiments which showed something that they wouldn't let him reveal. And I'll let him talk about it in his book, The Biology of Belief, and if you ever see him, you can, on a docket anywhere, please go see him. But this is a guy who said what his experiment proved, and by the way, he lost his job because he wouldn't suppress it. What his experiment showed, absolutely, totally nailed it, was that DNA is mostly information. And so here he is, medical guy, teacher in medical school, starting to teach exactly what we are channeling today, and it's in my book. And he goes even further, and he says what is in there not only speaks to the stem cells of the body, but also to consciousness. And now this is where I like to wrap this around what you've been doing for a very long time. Because inner speak, and by its very words, and I haven't looked at your work, I haven't been to your seminars or listened to any CDs or DVDs. I don't have to because I know what you're doing. and that's why I honor it so much. You are attempting to help people rewrite the information in their Akash. And that is exactly what Kryon says we're able to do. And I can just talk for hours to tell you what is rewritable, not only your consciousness, not only those things that bother you, not only that which keeps you from moving ahead, not only can you clear blocks. Let's get down to the biology, because here's where Kryon says you have no idea what the DNA can do. What if that information spoke to the stem cells and tells the stem cells what to do when it actually, the cells divide? Our cells divide about every 90 days or so. About every 7 years or so we get a new body. Most people know that. So everything is rejuvenated. When it rejuvenates, every single cell, when it rejuvenates the pattern through the information in the DNA that it was born with. And biology just thinks of science, just thinks that's just the way it works. So if you have a predisposition for cancer or whatever it is, that gets reproduced. So even though you get a new body every 7 years, and even though it's constantly being rejuvenated, the flawed, what do you want to call it, information that gives you a predisposition is duplicated with it. So what's the DNA doing? It's taking the old information you were born with, everything that you've learned, all that life, coming in even as the Akashic record from the last lifetime, all those things which are karmic, and bam, putting it into the next new cell. So it's a brand new cell with all the old stuff. What if it didn't have to be that way? What if you could rewrite it so that when the cells divided, they would start making new information, and slowly, ever so slowly, you would become literally the person you want to become. This is just one of many things. How would you like to mine the Akash? That is to go back and pick up attributes of a lifetime that you've lived and earned, and when you're walking around with it, you think it's in the past because you're in linearity. If DNA is quantum, in quantum state, there is no past, present, or future. It's all in the now. Therefore, if something is in the now, and that's you and your Akashic record, you can dip down and pick out things that you've earned that are you, that you've lived through, perhaps with another body and another name, but the same soul, the same higher self. And that's the way Spirit looks at us. It looks at us as a combination, a compilation of all of our lifetimes, all of our wisdom, everything we've ever learned. We don't even look at ourselves that way. Boy, I should take a breath.
But you know what? That is exactly what I define as ascension.
Mm-hmm.
That you've got it when you get to that place where you realize that you can have all that back, have access to all of it, then you have ascended. And you don't have to die to do it.
This is the definition of ascension by Kryon. It's not going to get into the way of yours at all because we're all working together here, is the human being who passes literally into the next consciousness without dying.
Mm-hmm.
And so what have you done to do that? Well, you've reached down inside, and you picked up some of the things that you've improved yourself, raised your vibrations, almost like you move into the next lifetime as another person without the death experience. And in the process, you might even live longer. And Kryon winks at this one and says, you have no idea. He says, don't you think it's weird? In the human body, we're at the top of the evolutionary ladder, and the starfish can grow back an arm, and you can't. You said,
well, not only that, but we weren't always that way. I mean, you look back in the history that we have, which is the Bible. You know, back in the Old Testament of the Bible, so 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 years ago, people lived 1,000 years.
They did. This is the other thing too. We look at that as metaphoric. We say, well, I'm not really sure that he was really that old. Yeah, he was, because every time the cells replicated, they replicated a much different way than ours today. We replicate aging. You know, we put it upon ourselves. We've decided, and this is our pattern today. The pattern can be shifted and changed. We can go backwards if we want to. We can start adding these years. Dr. Ovakaitis, now I'm looking at the DNA researcher, actually has seminars where he says how to live forever. So, I mean, he's looking at it from a chemical standpoint, but with quantum inventions, and saying we can rewrite the whole thing. This is so new, and so, by the way, controversial chemically, that we may not be able to do. And now I'm turn the page, folks. This is not esoteric anymore. This is not channeling. I'm talking about hardcore science. We may not be able to actually convince the AMA that this is real, and we may have to go overseas to do all the experiments and get it going so that we can have some enhancement to the consciousness by having some, what I want to call, supplements that actually can help this and help us to get through this. And I'm saying these things probably out of context, and I'm saying them probably, and I shouldn't, but these things are happening in Russia right now. I've seen them. That blow you away, absolutely blow you away. Rewriting stem cell technology so that people can have, who have enlarged hearts or something, within 3 to 4 months, the heart starts shrinking, the valves fit again. Major cause of death in the United States, one of them is heart disease, and that's why. So, and it's all being done with quantum medicine. So there, not only what I'm telling you spiritually and esoterically is it accurate, but it's being echoed in quantum biology as we speak. We're on to something.
Well, but I and along with that, I've got a lot of theories about healing and changing, but one of the things is that whatever you believe you can do, you can do. And I don't have a thyroid. I was diagnosed with Graves' disease many years ago and had my thyroid ablated. And one of the things that I've been doing for the last, certainly since these DNA glyphs started coming into me, I've been using them to rebuild my thyroid. I've already had, through my blood work, I've had to have my thyroid supplement dropped, and I'm getting ready to have it done again. So
here we
it's
go.
working.
It is working. I have talked to people who are diabetics, who are rewriting the information very slowly as the cells replicate, and they've gone from numbers of shots per week or whatever to down to taking a tincture, which is almost a homeopathy that says to the body, yeah, I still need to signal it, but I don't need the near the chemistry I did before. It's happening. I personally speak in my book. These are all testimonies. People say, yeah, well, you got to say that because you're on the air and that's how you're earning a living and all that. I have heart issues, like a lot of Americans do at my age. I had an MRI scan done 3-4 years ago that showed a scar in my heart very, very clearly. I have the actual pictures. When I started all of this, especially with the DNA work, now we have ultrasounds that show the scar is gone. So you can't take a scar in the heart and repair it. It's impossible. If you ask medical science, they say it cannot be done. What if you're growing a new heart? By the cells reproducing in the heart muscles, the scar is going to go away. And that is against everything we have learned in allopathic medicine. It's not a cause and effect relationship. We are looking at actually growing parts and rejuvenating. This is how we can live a long time. And so this is just a little touch and a piece of what Kryon has said. Now, we're not even getting to the real woo-woo stuff, but I love layer 8 when it comes to the Akash, and that's what you're working with.
Absolutely, absolutely. And since I read your book, now I'm starting to work with layer 9.
Healing layer.
Yeah, because I believe that I've been telling people for years that I am rejuvenating and youthing myself, and my goal is to get back to 39. Me and Jack Benny are going to get to 39 and stay there forever.
There is
that tells you how old I am, because most people that are listening to this show probably don't even know who Jack Benny is.
Sure, you're 40. You're trying to go back 1 year. So was you got Jack Benny from your parents. You don't have to lie about it. Sorry.
That's right.
I want to say that what science has always marveled at, and medical science has scratched its head and just all kinds of theories, they cannot explain spontaneous remission. And they see it usually in a hospital situation where a patient is either being at that point of a total imbalance, or death is coming, or they've had a shock that they have cancer or something, and the body does something within 90 days which takes and completely remisses the disease. It's gone. They say there doesn't seem to be any rhyme nor reason of who it has to do with, or age, or race, or anything. It's just that humans can do it. And so they understand that there is a function in the body. They wish they could find the button where the body rids itself of the disease. That's what we would love to have our immune system do. What if this, and Kryon says it is an example of exactly what we can do by rewriting the information. The people who do it, I don't know how. They do it either through intent or because they're in stress. They don't have to be religious or spiritual. It happens through the whole spectrum of humanity. But doctors have seen this over and over, and they would love to bottle that. So here we are, indeed, with in the old days what you call miracles, and we're looking at it through a microscope and saying, how'd you do that? And this is what Kryon says. We can do this kind of thing, and all we have to do is start understanding and believing that it is available. Part of this whole thing is lack of belief. You know how you and your work are helping people to get through blocks, and the blocks, what they do to our lives. One of the blocks is belief, and it's a big one. And that's one of the layers of DNA, too. Did you know that the body wants to heal itself? It wants to do that so bad. It's in survival mode all the time. There's actually a layer of DNA that is the healing layer that really wants to have healing all the time, wants to have spontaneous remission. And the things that block it is the same. It's consciousness. So how about rewriting the consciousness? Can you rewrite what happened in the past so that you don't wake up with fear, anxiety? Now we're talking about mental health. That's available also. It's can you rewrite your personality traits that you don't like? Well, this is mining the Akash. I used to be a very frustrated guy who got very angry all at the drop of a hat, and I am not that guy anymore. And I tell you, I didn't go through any self-help courses. I had an angel sitting on me for enough years that I have absorbed a very peaceful countenance. I travel for a living. I'm on airplanes constantly. All these years, I've never missed a meeting because I have, I want you on to say, I have guidance as to what to do in a very sweet way, never fearful, never anxious, rarely get angry. All of these things are diametrically opposed to the guy I was born with. And sometimes I think I ought to change my name because it isn't me. That's, of course, I'm being facetious there because I like my name, but you know what I'm saying. You really do. You look backwards and say, wow, there is a big difference.
Yeah, and I just completely believe that there's nothing we can't correct and change and enhance if we want to. And, you're talking about that having to go out of the country to get the technology, this new multidimensional technology. But I got to tell you, I got a machine right here in my living room that there's a doctor in California that had a near-death experience. Her name is Kathy Forty, and she came back with the blueprints for a software-hardware combination. It's called Trinfinity 8, and it is a bridge until we can get to the rest of that. It's a bridge that you receive mathematical encoding to do whatever you want to change in your body physically.
This has actually been available from several sources, and she's got a great system. Then there's I think it's called the QXCI. There's the German one of almost 2 decades ago using radionics. There's been a number of these things pop up. The issue is if these people start advertising that they're curative, they'll be put in jail. That's what I mean. It's very difficult for us to tell people what we have. And what you're going to start seeing is from places like Russia, and I keep talking about Moscow because that's where I saw this, where they're actually, let me just tell you what, Russia wants to be strong again, and they don't want to do it with military. They want to do it with their science. And they can, and so they're very open to all these kinds of things, especially the quantum work. We'll be able to say these things are curative, and we can say they're quantum. And there won't be anybody objecting because the proof will be there in double-blind studies. And the things you can't do in the States right now because everybody laughs at you, including her machine. if she went over that, she could probably prove that it works and get licensed. And
exactly. And now she sells it as a health and beauty. Let's tone up the butt. Let's give yourself a breast lift and remove your wrinkles. But I will tell you that it does so much more than that. I've got a client. Yeah, I mean, because I work on people all over the world that have never actually seen the machine. I write their name 3 times on a piece of paper. I put the wands on the paper, and they receive the treatment. And there's a lady in Texas whose body is releasing scleroderma and healing itself.
This is amazing. People will say, well, how can that be? How can you do this on the phone? I mean, and they've never seen them, and they're far, far away, and all this. How is this possible? I want to tell you, if you don't mind a little science, and I can just speak for a moment, things in a quantum state are in what they would call an entangled state. That is to say, there's no distance and there's no time. Light is an example of this, and particles of light can be in an entangled state, which is to say they can be everywhere at once and in 2 places at the same time, and distance is not an issue. If our DNA is quantum, there are some of those attributes with DNA as well. So you can have somebody on the other side of the world working with you when distance makes no difference. It's actually been labeled as radionics, which is what we have called in the esoteric world the labeling for this particular process which is going on. And it is, I wouldn't say, it's provable, but it's certainly anecdotal, and that is to say there's a lot of people that are getting well, and there's a lot of people that are changing. And then it is complicated because it involves more than just taking a pill and calling in the morning. It involves the people's intent. Anytime you get into a situation where you have to intend, where you have to change your consciousness a little in order to believe, you're going to have various states of efficacy, whether somebody's going to get well or they're not, or, it's just like the healers that will tell you, all I can do is bring these people to the place where they have to take it themselves. And what did Kryon say? He said, you can clear the boulders in the road for them, but if they put them all back, what are you going to do? So,
right. Lee, we've got a caller with a question. You ready
Sure.
to take a question?
Sure.
Okay, so this is a caller from area code 659. How can we help you?
Yeah, hi, good morning. May I ask, is
Hi.
there any healing on this show?
I'm sorry?
Is there any healing on this show?
No, not on the show per se. We're just mostly talking about Lee's new book, which is called The 12 Layers of DNA. So we're not actually going into healing, live healing on the show tonight. Sorry about that.
Gene, will you ever do that? That would be I love the listener's question. Would that be something, because of what we just talked about, and because we believe in it, this would be an interesting situation for you to have perhaps a segment where you would invite some kind of live healing on the show.
I do that. I do that every Monday at 1 o'clock on CBS Radio, cbsnewskyradio.com. I do a 1-hour healing show where people call in and we do healings and clearings on the air. So
you're way ahead
I
of
think
me.
I'll block out a week and actually just do that on this show. If people are interested, I'm happy to do that.
Well, good. Well, that caller who just called in should call back and have that experience.
Absolutely.
That's what she's talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah. You get people excited.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hello?
Great. Yes?
Hello?
Yes, are you there?
Where is the CBS radio show? Yes, I'm here. The CBS radio show, is it on Internet?
It's on the Internet only, actually. Well, that's not true. It's on FM radio in 4 cities, but it's www.newskyradio.com. And it's every Monday at 1 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, or Eastern Time.
Sure. It will be 2 a.m. for me.
Oh, okay.
Great.
Well, there is a place on the homepage there where you can do instant feedback and you can get your healing request done on the show. So I hope that helps you.
Sure, no problem. Yeah, okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Let me just, we ought to take a moment here to say that when this phenomenon of we call it radio, it isn't, it's Internet, even though, as you pointed out, you're on some FM stations. When this phenomenon started, it was like, oh, they're just on the internet. Oh, it's the inexpensive, cheap way to do this, and you're not really on the radio, are you? And all those kinds of things. And now, all these years later, if you could see the stats, you would realize I'm not interested in being on the air. I want to be on the internet because there's thousands of people that are able to listen at their own leisure, to look at the archives. Things we could never do on radio, we are able to do here. And if the listenership hasn't noticed, we're not being interrupted every 10 minutes for 4 minutes of commercials. So I can remember doing radio shows where we had an hour show and I really only talked 25 minutes. So
exactly.
This is a great, great venue.
You know, and the truth is, I think that Awakening Zone would let me run longer than an hour. You know, I thought I would start off at an hour and see how it worked.
Yeah.
I'm just putting my big toe in the water. Let's talk a little bit more about you, though, because we've only got 9 minutes left on the show, and I want to make sure people know your website is Kryon.com, and you've got so much great information. It's a huge website, Lee.
It's a lot. There's a lot there. I got information from Kryon right from the get-go what this website to do, and I don't give private readings. I don't do private healings. My work is very well cut out. I go and I talk to. I've been over 30 countries, and I've talked to auditoriums filled with people. I plant seeds of information. We channel in front of them. The Kryon gives a beautiful message and a love wash. And that on the website, the whole thing is a place where you can see and hear things for free. That's what we want to do. Of course, we've got books there, too, and you can in our schedule. But most of the pages, 90% of the pages, are filled with things you don't have to sign up for. There's no place to send us money. It's not really commercialized, except one page, which we call the store, which is how we make our living. And everything else we give away. So there's over 100 hours of channeling. You can go there and listen to it and download it to your iPads. There's over 100 transcribed channels that are professionally edited, so they're not filled with typos, mistakes, and you can print them out as you want to and make your own book if you'd like. So this is what the offering is, and this is what my work is about.
Yeah, and it's phenomenal stuff. And you know, I know that you happen to be coming to Atlanta because I've already got tickets. February the 27th, and I can't wait. So you're on the road a lot, too.
I'm on the road a lot. And if you take a look at my schedule this year, I'm also in more foreign countries than I think I have ever done in 1 year. People think, well, you know, at your age you ought to be slowing down. And I'm going to say, why should I slow down at 40? So I'm with you, Gene.
Oh, yeah. I'm not planning on ever slowing down.
Yeah. Right.
But, yeah, if y'all are listening, if you're in the Georgia area or you want to come to Georgia, it's a day with Lee, and it's February the 27th. And there's a link on his website so you can sign up. Becky Hanna is his host here in Atlanta, and you can either pay by credit card or you can send her a check. She's real flexible on that one. So I'm not sure if it's full or not, but it's going to be a great event. So looking forward to that.
That means you're going to be there.
I am.
And that means that I can pick on you from the stage.
Of course you can.
Okay, good.
Of course you can.
All right.
Now, I've got to ask you, did you ever start back teaching the Journey Home?
I have not ever. I've never stopped. We used to have a 3-day intensive called the Journey Home, where we actually walked through. That's Kryon Book 5. It's a novel where we actually walked through it. And we don't do that anymore, but I do single days every once in a while, one lecture day. I just did that in Rio, by the way. We've done it in the States so much that a lot of people have seen it. So I'll start it up again when I think it's time.
Yeah, because I guess I was at your last 3-day, and that was a life-changing experience for me. So thank you very much.
Well, we still do a 3-day intensive, and it's very similar. We call it the Discovery Series. It is on my site, and it's going to be in Florida. It's not too far from you.
Okay, whereabouts in Florida?
It's going to be in Sawgrass.
Oh, cool. All right, the Fort Lauderdale area. All right.
Yep. So and it's on the site, and you can see everything we do there, along with pictures of what it looks like, and a lot of it's only 3-day interactive seminar we do.
You know, I want to kind of get back to your book, because there was a topic in the book that I thought was really sweet, and it's the part about our angelic name. And I just love the part where Kryon said that our guides and our angels are all part of us. Can you share a little bit about that?
I would love to. It's part of what I teach is in the lecture series, and in order to really teach it well, I have to tell people we've got a singular bias. That is to say, everything is singular. We look at an angel has to be one energy. We give it skin and wings and a name, never understanding that truly on the other side of the veil, everything is in a quantum state. It's not in 3D. That means that any angel you might ever have seen or feel is part of the collective. They're part of everything. Now, if you look at where, even if you can believe that, and that's a hard one because we want to put it in a singular way. If that is in us, you realize that we are then part of everything as well. And if you start studying what Kryon is saying, this reflects back to some of the most ancient belief systems on the planet, which is what we have Buddhism and Hinduism. And although you're not maybe a Buddhist or Hindu, if you take a look at some of the cores of what they teach ascension, they teach Akashic, they teach past life, they tell you you're one with everything. We are not a new age at all. We are a bunch of people studying what the ancients knew. And so we get into, is truly is history repeating itself, and all that's up to my friend Greg Braden, who teaches that. But it is truly so that we have a large part of everything within us, and that is how you can tap into, when you start tapping into what I would call the wise creator self, your higher self. This is why you start receiving so much more than you ever expected. This is why you relax. Because you're no longer just you trying to survive in a world with 6 or 7 billion people, because you really are more than that. One of the things that I learned when I started this that made the difference in my life was that God was bigger than I was told. If I can even use the word God, it's just an amazing experience that everyone has that ability to go inside, find that creator source, that divine part of themselves, the angelic part, and work with it. And it is beautiful. And I would hope that every listener in this program would start to believe this kind of thing and feel less anxious, a little bit more loving in their own lives, wake up with a smile, and realize that it's not just about survival and getting through life. And when it comes to healing, all of these things are just relax and start this process of finding what's inside, and then you're led to the kind of facilitators like Jean that I'm talking to, who also help you to plant seeds. But really, you're doing it yourself.
Yeah, and I like the thing that you're saying about relaxing, because so much of our best work is done when we're not doing.
Yes.
So we're just being.
And we teach that being is what Spirit wants us to do. I look at thousands of people, and so many of them write to me and talk to me and say, "I know I'm here to do something." They said, "But I don't know what it is." And I say, "You don't know, because again, you're biased. You're biased in having to do something. You're always told that you have to get ahead and all that, not understanding that as an old soul on this planet, just by being here, you spread light." There's kind of spoken of this in a very specific way in what we do with the crystalline grid and all this stuff, but let me just summarize it. Your being here, working through issues, and how you handle people, and how you handle anger, and how you handle anxiety, is all energy which is transformed. That is seen as light. It goes into the planet, it stays in the planet, helps everything to vibrate higher. You're doing work just by going to work in a dark place. You really are.
Absolutely.
You're doing more than I'm doing on the radio. Because I don't have to face off with people of low consciousness or who look you in the face and call you names. That I don't have to deal with life-threatening diseases in my body and all these things that so many people that I am with have to do. And I really admire them and see, especially when they come out of it, and they're practicing these things, and they stand before me happy, healed, satisfied, and content and relaxed. I just want to take them to dinner and say, "Thank you, God."
Absolutely. Absolutely. Wow. Well, Lee, this has been a phenomenal show, and I feel so blessed that you took time out of your busy schedule to be with us this evening on Awakening Zone. And I truly cannot wait to see you in person in February because it's been too long. So, wow. So the book is called The 12 Layers of DNA. Lee's website is Kryon.com. And you've been listening to Interspeak Soul Adventures with Gene Adrian, your consciousness coach and creator of Quantum Change at GeneAdrian.com. Don't forget to sign up for my newsletter when you're on my website, and I will send you your free link to the Interspeak card so that you can start working on yourself, by yourself, and being and doing. All you got to do is sign up for my newsletter. And next week on the Awakening Zone, I guess it's going to be Gary J. McDonald. He's the author of a brand new book called Everything You Need to Know to Get to Heaven. And that should be really interesting because the book is, it's got some thought-provoking ideas in it. Let's just put it that way. And tomorrow, don't miss on Awakening Zone, Wolfing's Spirit Radio Show. It's Wednesday at 2 o'clock Eastern Time. And then after that, the Astro Doc with Doug Davies and Linda Hoppy will be at 8 o'clock Eastern Time here on the AwakeningZone.com. And then at 9:30, after the Astro Doc, is going to be the Cosmic Particle Show with Meg Blackburn-Losey. We have got such a fantastic lineup on this network, folks. You could listen to Awakening Zone all day, every day, and not get anything done. But, you know, that's where we are with it, and, you know, we're growing, and we so appreciate all of you, you know, sending your energy, listening in, calling in, and we're going to live up to your expectations, and hopefully we'll exceed them. So thank you very much, and again, thanks, Lee. And until next week, remember, people who take responsibility for their lives create the reality they desire. Ciao.
You have been listening to an Awakening Zone presentation, Human Empowerment Radio and Media for the 21st Century and Beyond.